Hong Kong is dead, said Sankei News, the largest Japanese news agency. This is not only the current international community's view of Hong Kong, but also echoes the sentiments of the Hong Kong people. On June 30th, Beijing passed the controversial Hong Kong National Security Law, marking the end of 23 years of one country, two systems, and broke the promises it made with Britain before the handover of Hong Kong in 1997. In our previous video, it was mentioned that Beijing legislated the National Security Law by bypassing the Basic Law and Hong Kong Legislative Council, and set up an agency that reported directly to Beijing, allowing mainland personnel to legally operate in Hong Kong with impunity. Article 38 of the new security law states the rules also apply to infractions that occur anywhere outside Hong Kong, even if committed by foreign citizens. Anyone who is critical of the CCP that sets foot on Hong Kong soil or takes a Hong Kong registered flight or ship could be arrested. This instantly reminds Canadians of the two Michaels case. Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig, who were detained by China in the wake of the arrest of Meng Wanzhou, the Huawei executive in Vancouver. They were claimed to be charged with espionage on June 19th. China's action has been widely regarded as hostage diplomacy. On June 24th, Beijing's spokesperson Zhao Lijian was asked about whether China is doing hostage diplomacy. He didn't deny the statement and said such options are within the rule of law and could open up space for resolution to the situation of the two Canadians. In a statement on June 25th, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau rejected such an option to abandon the rule of law, stating such an action would put many more Canadians in peril. In fact, there are more Canadians still being held as political prisoners by China, including Hussein Jalil, a Uyghur human rights activist, Sun Qian, a Falun Gong practitioner, and Wang Bingzhang, a Chinese human rights activist. Hong Kong has been the international financial center for the past decade, attracting millions of foreigners and investments. According to the 2019 census, it was estimated 300,000 Canadians, 100,000 Australians, 85,000 Americans, 56,000 Europeans, 40,000 Indians, and 30,000 Japanese citizens are living in Hong Kong. The basic law that once protected their freedom and rights has now been undermined by the Chinese Communist Party, and now they are all subjected to China's national security law, risking to be extradited to mainland China for trial and possibly creating more hostage diplomacy. Canada and the United Kingdom both issued a travel alert soon after the law took effect, stating that travelers may be at increased risk of arbitrary detention on national security grounds and possible extradition to mainland China.
Before I get started, I want to address the troubling news coming out of Hong Kong. Canada joins the international community in expressing its grave concern with the passage of national security legislation for Hong Kong by mainland China. After studying the legislation and its impact, Canada will treat exports of sensitive goods to Hong Kong in the same way as those destined for mainland China.
Beijing's action has shocked and angered countries around the globe. The US, UK, Australia, European Union, and its allies issued strong condemnations. Given that China won't change its mind, countries are now coming up with sanctions and proposals to help the Hong Kong people. British Foreign Minister Dominic Raab announced on July 1st that the UK will keep its promise to BNO holders by providing a 5-year residence permit and a way to apply for permanent residence and citizenship in the future. BNO stands for British National Overseas, a passport issued to British colonial Hong Kong citizens who were born before 1997. Approximately 3 million Hong Kong people are eligible for BNO. The Foreign Ministry also summoned the Chinese ambassador Liu Xiaoming to express Britain's deep concern. This was the second time since 1984 that the UK had summoned the Chinese ambassador.
I can tell the House that after further detailed discussions with my right honourable friend the Home Secretary, I can now confirm we will proceed to honour our commitment to change the arrangements for those holding BNO status. I can update honourable members that we have worked with ministers right across Whitehall, and we have now developed proposals for a bespoke immigration route for BNOs and their dependents. We will grant BNOs 5 years limited leave to remain with the right to work or study. After these 5 years, they'll be able to apply for settled status. And after a further 12 months with settled status, they will be able to apply for citizenship. This is a special, bespoke set of arrangements.
When the Beijing and Hong Kong government are celebrating the sovereignty handover anniversary and legislation of the new law on July 1st, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said in a press conference that this law is outrageous and an affront to all nations. Free Hong Kong was one of the world's most stable, prosperous, and dynamic cities. Now it will be just another communist-run city where people will be subject to the party elite's whims.
Indeed, this is already happening. Security forces are already rounding up Hong Kongers for daring to speak and think freely. The rule of law has been eviscerated. And as always, the Chinese Communist Party fears its own people more than anything else. The United States is deeply concerned about the law's sweeping provisions and the safety of everyone living in the territory, including Americans. Article 38 of the new law also purports to apply to offenses committed outside of Hong Kong by non-residents of Hong Kong, and this likely includes Americans.
In response to the new security law, the U.S. Senate unanimously approved the Hong Kong Autonomy Act on July 2nd, which authorizes the U.S. government to impose economic sanctions on individuals and entities that violate the Sino-British Joint Declaration and the Basic Law. On June 30th, U.S. Senator Marco Rubio and fellow congressmen also introduced Hong Kong's Safe Harbor Act, which would give Hong Kongers priority to refugee status and protect former politically active Hong Kongers from persecution by the Chinese Communist Party with an unlimited quota. Australia Prime Minister Scott Morrison also said on July 2nd that a bill to allow Hong Kong people to apply for residency and citizenship in Australia is currently being drafted. In addition, Japan and Taiwan showed their support by setting up task forces and drafting bills that will provide direct assistance to Hong Kongers and allow them to apply for residency. Despite the strong reaction from governments around the world, Beijing's spokesperson Zhao Lijian said on July 2nd that Hong Kong's affairs are purely China's internal affairs, and China is determined to push forward Hong Kong's national security law. He also mentioned that China resolutely opposes the words and actions of the United States in interfering with Hong Kong affairs. Notably, there are also countries publicly supporting the law and defending China at the 44th session of the United Nations Human Rights Council, such as Russia, North Korea, Pakistan, Cuba, Egypt, and Venezuela, where some of them have extremely poor human rights records. The current situation in Hong Kong demonstrates to the free world that the promises of a dictatorial regime should never be trusted. Without any moral standard, the regime does not care about the rights of the people, but only considers its own interests. If the CCP remains adamant on the Hong Kong issue, the luckier Hong Kongers may be able to leave for other countries and live a safer life. However, many more will struggle to survive under the shadow of the communist regime, and people from different parts of the world may also be at risk of China's hostage diplomacy. Many people now wonder why China has become increasingly strict on Hong Kong. CCP's former leader Deng Xiaoping, who proposed one country, two systems, knew that keeping a certain degree of autonomy in Hong Kong is the reason for its success in attracting foreign investment. Has it changed now? What is the future of Hong Kong? Could it still keep its status as the international financial center? Stay tuned for our next episode.